Somewhere on your phone right now, there's a folder you have never opened, never named, and never even noticed. And it is quietly growing bigger every single day. You didn't create it. You didn't approve it. Yet it sits there, silently absorbing gigabytes, while your phone tells you, again and again, that you're out of space. You delete photos. You uninstall apps. You clear your gallery. And somehow, within a week, the warning returns. If that sounds familiar, you're not imagining things and you're not doing anything wrong. There's a hidden system operating underneath the surface of your phone, one that almost nobody is told about. And once you understand how it works, you will never look at your storage the same way again. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most tech tutorials won't tell you up front. The apps you trust the most are usually the ones doing the most damage. And the biggest offender, for over 2 billion people worldwide, is the app sitting on your home screen right now. WhatsApp. Not because it's poorly built, not because it's malicious, but because of a design decision made years ago that almost nobody questioned. And that decision is still silently draining storage on your device at this exact moment. Think about how you actually use WhatsApp. You don't just send messages. You receive photos from family groups you barely check. You get forwarded videos from cousins, coworkers, and that one uncle who shares everything. You watch friends' status updates every single day without thinking twice. And every single one of those interactions leaves something behind. Not a trace, not a log. An actual file, sitting on your internal storage, waiting. Nobody warns you about this when you install the app. There's no pop-up, no heads up. This is going to cost you gigabytes. It simply happens in the background, invisibly, until one day your phone stops you cold with a red warning. Storage almost full. But here's where it gets worse. This isn't a single folder. It's an entire hidden ecosystem of folders layered on top of each other, each one doing its own quiet damage. And most people, even people who consider themselves tech-savvy, have never opened a single one of them. Let's start with the one causing the most damage, because it's the one nobody expects, the WhatsApp status folder. Every single day you scroll through status updates. Someone's birthday, someone's sunset, someone's gym selfie. You watch it, you move on, you forget about it completely, but WhatsApp doesn't forget. Behind the scenes, the app is silently downloading and storing a private copy of every single status you view, saving it into a hidden folder on your device. Think about what that means. Every story from every contact you've ever viewed, sitting quietly on your phone, files you never asked for and will never open again, taking up space you desperately need. According to how storage behaves on active WhatsApp accounts, this single hidden folder alone can account for hundreds of megabytes to multiple gigabytes, depending on how many status updates you view in a given week. Read that again. Not the messages you send, not the photos you deliberately saved, content you glanced at once for 3 seconds and forgot. Permanently parked on your device, invisible unless you know exactly where to look. And this is where everything changes, because that status folder is just the entry point. The real damage runs deeper. Every photo, video, voice note, and document that anyone sends you, whether you ask for it or not, gets automatically downloaded and stored by default. That's not an exaggeration. That's how the app is engineered to behave out of the box. A single group chat with 200 members, the kind most people are part of for school, work, family, or community, becomes a silent storage factory. Every meme, every forwarded video, every voice note someone left at 2 a.m., every good morning image with flowers on it, all of it lands directly onto your device's internal memory, whether you open the chat or not. Multiply that across every group you're part of every week, every month, and you start to understand why your phone feels heavier than it should. This is not chaos. This is exactly how the system was built to behave. Automatic, invisible, and relentless. What most people are not seeing is that this media doesn't just sit in one place either. There's a second layer hiding beneath it, a sent folder, a private archive storing a duplicate copy of every single photo and video you have ever sent to anyone on top of what you received. Think about that for a moment. Every image you forwarded, every video you've shared, every document you've sent for work, WhatsApp keeps its own private backup of all of it, separately from what's already sitting in your gallery. On an active account, this duplicate archive alone can quietly account for anywhere between 500 megabytes and 2 full gigabytes of deadweight. Files that exist purely because the system defaults to keeping everything forever unless you personally intervene. And still, we haven't reached the part that shocks people the most. Because underneath the media, underneath the status folder, underneath the duplicate sent archive, there's a fourth hidden layer most users have never even heard of, the databases folder. Every single day, WhatsApp quietly creates a full backup of your entire chat history, every conversation, every message, every shared file reference, and stores it locally on your device. Not just once, every day. And it doesn't delete the old ones automatically in the way most people assume. It keeps a rolling stack of daily backups stretching back weeks, sometimes longer, sitting untouched in a folder buried so deep in your file system that the average user will never stumble onto it by accident. You only ever need the most recent one. Everything before that is digital deadweight, but it stays there anyway, silently multiplying because almost nobody knows to go in and clean it out. This is the moment where the full picture finally comes into focus, and it's a lot bigger than WhatsApp is using too much storage. What you're actually looking at is a chain of 4 separate hidden systems: status downloads, received medias, a duplicate sent media, and daily chat backups, all operating simultaneously, all invisible by default, all stacking on top of each other every single day you use the app. This is happening on billions of devices worldwide, right now, while people sit there deleting a handful of photos from their gallery and wondering why it barely made a dent. According to informed observations from people who've actually gone in and mapped this out, the pattern is consistent. Users who assume a few old pictures are the problem are almost always wrong. The real story is buried 3 or 4 folders deep, in places the average phone owner has never opened in their life. And that's exactly why this keeps happening to millions of people, over and over, no matter how many times they clean their phone. You cannot fix a problem you cannot see, and this entire system was built to stay invisible. Now here's where the power shift happens. Because once you know where to look, this entire situation flips completely in your favor. The first move is inside WhatsApp itself, and it takes less time than scrolling through one more status update. Open WhatsApp, go into Settings, then Storage and Data, and tap Manage Storage. What appears next is something most users have never seen before: a full breakdown of exactly how much space WhatsApp itself is consuming, broken down chat by chat, file by file. Scroll down and you'll find an option to review items larger than 5 megabytes. And this is where the real bulk tends to hide. Not the small stuff, the forwarded videos, the voice notes people never bothered to compress, the images sent at full resolution because nobody thought to check. This single screen alone, for most active users, reveals gigabytes they never knew existed on their own device. But think about what that means if you stop there, you've cleaned the surface, you haven't touched the status archive, you haven't touched the duplicate sent folder, you haven't touched the daily database backups. This is where most tutorials stop, and this is exactly why most people go through this cleanup once, feel relieved for a week, and then find themselves right back where they started. So here's where it gets worse before it gets better. To actually reach the deeper layers, you need to go beyond the app itself and into your phone's own file system. Using a file manager, something like Files by Google or a dedicated File Explorer app, you need to enable a setting most users have never touched: Show Hidden Files. This single toggle changes everything because it exposes an entire layer of folders that Android deliberately keeps out of sight during normal use. Once hidden files are visible, navigate through internal storage into the Android folder, then into Media, then into com.whatsapp, and finally into the WhatsApp folder itself. This is the real control room. Inside, you'll find a media folder holding every photo, video, and document exchanged across every single chat and group you've ever been part of. Sort by file size, largest first, and you will almost certainly be shocked by what surfaces: videos you forgot existed, images forwarded a dozen times, files with no relevance to your life anymore, sitting there, taking up space you actually need. Most users, the very first time they do this, recover somewhere between 1 and 5 gigabytes in a matter of minutes. Read that again. Minutes, not hours, not a factory reset, minutes. Right next to that media folder sits the one almost nobody has heard of: Statuses, deliberately hidden with a dot at the front of its name, so ordinary file browsers won't even display it without that hidden files setting enabled. Inside, you'll find copies of every status update you've viewed recently, temporary files with 0 long-term value, because once someone's status expires, the version on your phone is worthless anyway. Delete all of it without hesitation. There's nothing here you need to keep. Then comes the databases folder, the one holding those daily automatic backups we talked about earlier. Inside, you'll typically see a stack of files with names like MSG Store, each one tagged with a date, each one representing a full snapshot of your chat history from that specific day. You only need the newest one. Everything older exists purely as digital sediment, and clearing it out reclaims space without touching a single message you actually care about, because your most recent backup already contains everything current. And finally, separate from all of this, sits your app cache: temporary rendering data, thumbnail previews, and background files that build up simply from using the app day after day. This one's even simpler to handle. Go into your phone's settings, then apps, find WhatsApp, tap storage, and hit clear cache. This removes the temporary buildup completely, without touching your chats, your media, or your backups in any way. Now think about what you've just done. You went from a single storage full warning that felt impossible to explain to systematically dismantling 4 separate hidden layers most people never even knew existed. This isn't luck. This isn't a one-time trick. This is understanding exactly how the system was engineered to behave, and using that knowledge to take back control of a device that was quietly working against you. But here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the part that should genuinely concern you. WhatsApp is not the only app doing this. It's simply the most visible example because it's the one nearly everyone uses daily. The same underlying pattern. Automatic downloads, hidden duplicate storage, silent daily backups exists in some form across dozens of other apps sitting on your phone right now. Cloud storage apps quietly cache offline copies of files you viewed once. Social media apps store thumbnail previews of every single image that's ever scrolled past your feed. Even your phone's own gallery and file system maintain trash folders that don't always empty themselves the way you'd assume. Files you thought you deleted, sitting in limbo, still occupying space, waiting for a manual confirmation you never knew you had to give. Think about what that means at scale. It's not one hidden folder, it's dozens of them, layered across every app you've ever installed. Most of them following the exact same invisible pattern. Absorb data automatically, store it without asking, and rely on the fact that almost nobody goes looking. This is precisely why storage problems feel like they never truly go away. Because you're not fighting one leak, you're fighting an entire network of them, spread across your entire device, each one small enough to go unnoticed individually, but devastating when they're all left unchecked at the same time. And this is exactly where the future uncertainty comes in, because here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to sit with. How much of what's stored on your phone right now do you actually control versus how much is simply happening to you by default? Every app you install comes with its own set of invisible defaults, decisions made by engineers you will never meet, optimizing for their convenience or their app's performance rather than your storage space. And unless you go digging, unless you enable hidden files, unless you learn where the database's folder lives, unless you understand that a status you watched once is still sitting on your device weeks later, you will never actually know the true footprint these apps are leaving on your life. What's even more unsettling is that as messaging apps evolve, as media resolution keeps climbing higher, as voice notes get longer and videos get sharper, this problem isn't shrinking, it's accelerating. The folders you cleared out today will start filling again the moment you open your next group chat. This isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing, invisible tug of war between your storage capacity and a system engineered by default to keep everything, whether you need it or not. So the real question isn't just, how do I free up space today? The real question is this: how many other hidden folders, across how many other apps, are quietly doing the exact same thing to your phone right now, without you ever knowing they exist? You just uncovered one. How many more are still sitting there, invisible, waiting?